Hi there, and welcome back to the Hub of Junior Golf Podcast. I'm Ryan Bird, joined as always by the founder of the Junior Golf Hub, Roger Nick. Roger, holiday season is here. College golf shut down. Certainly, that doesn't mean that we're not paying close attention to what's going to happen with the NCAA. Since we last spoke on this podcast, obviously, signing day did not seem to be impacted very much by the potential cut of scholarships, et cetera. We talked about what a huge day that is. Every high school, obviously, for all the different sports, generally puts on some sort of assembly to honor the kids that are going to the next level and playing collegiately. So we'll see ultimately how many of those kids that sign the dotted line and have the parents are wearing the hats and the sweatshirts don't end up playing there. But for now, still kind of on a waiting pattern here. What are you hearing on your end? Just no one really knows, huh?
No one knows. I agree. I mean, all of our kids and the kids that I've spoken to and parents around the area, all excited. They've got their T-shirt, got their hat, bumper sticker, ready to roll. However, I did speak to a couple coaches, and I did hear a couple of rumblings of they're going to have to make some decisions, and going into January, letting their roster know for the spring that they may go into the spring with less players. So, and I think that's more of like they are just being proactive versus it has nothing been done with the NCAA at this point. It's just coaches being proactive, and possibly just getting rid of players who just are not contributing at this point. And so just may be better from that perspective. But a lot of excitement around the buzz of signing day, and it's always fun to see that happening.
For sure. Looking from your perspective, would it make more sense to not do it in the middle of the year, especially, for kids that, most people agree that the spring season is more important. Obviously, that's when your conference tournament and the NCAA tournament is, but you play more events generally in the spring. That they should just hold off entirely to when the season's over, as opposed to doing it midstream, so to speak?
That's a great question. I think it's just a matter of convenience. I think a lot of it is that, hey, they get through their fall schedule. They've got a dead period, if you will, at their school typically. And let's fit it in. Let's make sure from an admission standpoint, admissions feel good that they've got a few players committed and or student athletes committed, I should say, that's going to start paying some tuition. So I think it's kind of falls in line now with what I'm hearing from an admissions programs of like, okay, early decision, early action, athletes being signed. It's kind of setting up their budget for the spring and that next year. So I really feel like it's almost more of an administrative kind of thing versus the coaches saying, hey, it's the best timing.
Well, their NCAA not the only one that is potentially cutting spots. The PGA Tour did just that. What was once a lottery ticket to try to make it to the PGA Tour, it is now less of a chance than a lottery ticket. I mean, I'll tell you, I talked to some journeyman pros on the range yesterday. They cannot believe what has happened. And essentially, they say now the only way to the PGA Tour is PGA Tour U. If you're out of college and you don't have access, this particular player last year finished top 5 on tour between the Latino America and the Canadian joint tour now.
Yeah.
And he's like, I've got nothing.
No status. Zero.
Like, I finished top 5 on the feeder tour and it led to nothing.
Yeah.
I have no status.
It gets him the second stage.
Yeah. He went to those. He didn't make it through the Q schools.
Yeah.
So, and I said, you're going back to the American stores. And he says, I can't. He says, the purses are so low that at this point, I'm better off going to Asia or to Europe or Monday qualifying. He said, all of those now are better options than the there's only the Tour of Americas is supposed to be only 2 steps away, and people are now not even playing that. So
They
we'll
don't have a
continue
chance.
that conversation, but certainly with the PGA Tour cutting spots, the NCAA potentially cutting spots, it's becoming tougher and tougher to have an opportunity. With that, we welcome in the assistant coach at Rice University, James Lee. James, thanks so much for joining us on the Hub of Junior Golf podcast. We will just jump right in and start with that initial question to you, which is, how'd you get into coaching, and how fulfilling has this been for you?
Hey, good morning, Ryan and Roger. Thanks so much for having me.
Hey, James.
Just want to say it's an honor to be on your podcast. I'm a big fan, have been for a while, but yeah, so I'm assistant golf coach at my alma mater here at Rice University in Houston, Texas. Proud alumni. I played from 2012 to 2016, and afterwards I really wanted to pursue a lifelong dream of playing professionally, and also seeing some family in Taiwan where I'm from. So I trained and played up to a few years overseas in Taiwan and China, back when the PGA Tour of China was still a thing. And it was a great experience, made a lot of friends. We played up until the pandemic, and that was good enough for me, if you know what I mean. But then, an opportunity came up in golf back here in Houston. It's a big city with a good golf town. So started working in the construction industry here in town, high school coaching, got my feet wet with a great family friend of mine, and got a chance to club pro for a few years for a legendary alumni of ours, Brad Lardon, up in Santa Fe, New Mexico, where I'm originally from New Mexico, so it was a good fit for me. And 3 years ago, I got the call from Coach Emil that I played for on the team, and be the assistant here, and it's been a lot of fun ever since. So, yeah.
That's great. James, congrats on all the success you're having as a player, or had as a player, and also as a coach. We know your future is going to be bright in this sport as a collegiate coach, and possibly, who knows, you may go back to playing. But as we were just saying, it's so tough out there now to actually gain a spot to play anywhere in the world. It's a brutal game right now. James, one of the things that we hear, and I heard just recently from one of the parents who called in, they were having a question between who do they talk to, from a head coach to an assistant coach. Give us a little bit of the lay of the land as an assistant coach to all the responsibilities that you may have, and what that means to the recruiting process and how you're communicating to some of these parents. So give us a little bit about an assistant coach life. Oh, or mute. Are you on mute?
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah, I said that's a great question, Roger. Thanks for asking. I love being an assistant coach, third year in it, and because I played for Coach Emil, we have a great rapport and complement each other well. I'm assuming that a lot of my friends and colleagues and role models on this podcast that you've had have answered it from a head coaching perspective, and I hope to be there one day. But for Coach Emil and I, we really work well together in terms of corresponding to emails. So from a recruit standpoint, I would highly encourage writing emails to both coaches, because I spent probably the better part of this morning at work in my office right now just responding back to emails. So that's a good first touch point. We were allotted 45 recruiting days a year, and over the last 2 years, I was just tracking this yesterday, I've done 55 of them myself, and Coach Emil's done the rest. So it's roughly a 50-50 split. But back to your question of who to talk to, I would encourage the recruit to write to both of us, and you never know when it's good timing or bad timing, busy times of the year, what tournaments you play, but just to keep people updated, and the summers are great times for us to do recruiting. I just got back from the Nota Begay, the third junior golf championship with Ryan and Junior Golf Hub, and so that's a great opportunity for us too. So I try to change up the tournaments we watch every year. It's good to have a heads up of what tournaments kids are playing, so kind of research the fields beforehand, and that's really my responsibility. And I just take a lot of pride in updating the head coach, having those conversations of who's on our board, the progress people make. So I really enjoy kind of keeping up with the kids.
You mentioned your board, you mentioned having that conversation. So, James, let's say you see player X and you're there by yourself, and whether it's from an improvement standpoint or it's the first time that you've seen him, and they just blow you away. The sound of the ball, whatever it is, the eyeball test, you're convinced. What is that conversation like? In your case, is it a done deal that if you're that sure of something, or in your particular case at Rice, would your head coach still want to get a look himself?
That's a great question, Ryan, because most of the time I am by myself. He's by himself. It's just the way recruiting works out. It's more efficient if, we just use one of the days when we go out there, instead of if both people go, you count for 2 of the days. That's something maybe the junior golf world doesn't realize, is we're allotted 45 days of the year. So try to spread that out as much as we can. Back to that case scenario, over the years I've been working here, I've gotten the advice of, trust your gut. Your gut's always right. And I certainly believe that. I believe that we as coaches are in this position to make difficult decisions and make the right decisions. But what I've learned through the brief time I've been recruiting is that my gut might say something, but there's always more to find out. There's always more to learn. There's always more diligence to be done. You can never know enough. So some X player blows me away on that day. It's a snapshot of their performance. That's great. But I really love to consult the opinion of my peers. You'd be so surprised how many of the coaches are watching the same kids, and how many of the kids are shooting for the same programs. So there's a lot of back and forth, a lot of chatter, and you just try to get your pros and cons, strengths and weaknesses, however you may call it, of each profile, and build from there. I would perhaps on the first time seeing somebody, I would really put them into the board, most likely already in there, and just add to their file. Take some swing videos. I'm a big fan of that. Not that that's like a primary factor, but maybe talk to the parents if the recruit is of age, as we talked about on this podcast, and then build the case from there. And I would definitely consult the head coach at that point, but probably need a couple more sample sizes to make a definitive decision, ideally to bring that player on campus for a visit.
James, you mentioned build a case, and I love that. You as a player, obviously, what it takes to play at the level that you guys are, right? The Power 4 schools are, to your point, they're probably recruiting most of the same kids, and the kids are recruiting most of those same schools. Building that case, what do you look for in the sense of saying, do you look for golf skill? You look for ranking? You look for it's just a look, it's an attitude? Give us a little bit more specific to that, because I think, as you know us with the Golf Performance Center and PDI, there are certain things that we kind of measure, but tell us what you look for when it comes to those things.
Certainly, Roger. I'm glad you asked this question, because talking to you last year on the panel, Danny, Tyler, Mike, all the guys at Junior Golf Hub, the PDI is a great measure of overall performance. And when we're looking at a recruit, we're looking for overall fit. I'm a big believer in finding your perfect fit. There's 309 Division I golf schools out there, and they're all across the country, and they're recruiting all around the world. So it's a two-way street, right? You have the recruits that want to play college golf, and they have their list, and then you have the coaches, 309 coaching staffs they have their list, and it's a little bit of a round robin from there. But in terms of what we're looking for, it is the total package, because we don't want to sell ourselves short. We're not a Power 4, we're a mid-major at Rice University playing at the American Athletic Conference, but we have a lot to offer, especially in terms of golf. We're a big city, Houston, Texas. We've got the great weather. I pulled in here 60 degrees today, but it's going to be 80 today, late November, so that's a good advantage.
Yeah.
We've got great courses to play, facilities to practice on. So anyways, I could go on and on, but in terms of the recruit, we'd love to find a kid that values those strengths
and could see themselves thriving within that environment, the tough competitive academic environment that so many of our peer group schools are offering. And talking to Ryan, this last few weeks, it's something that should be viewed in the calculus of a school's attractiveness for recruiting. We're here at Rice and a lot of the schools around the country, you're providing not only the development of player development, but also the development of young men. And a lot of that is, professionally, academically, professional development, career opportunities, internships during the summer. And that's something that we really emphasize and can really look forward to being a strength of ours. So yeah, a kid that's susceptible to that, that's really looking forward to that, and that views academics and golf as their goal.
I think college golf is a little fraudulent, and this is to both Roger and to James. And I think it's fraudulent because I don't think many schools are realistic with the players they bring in, and I think that's all part of the recruiting game, which the wheel keeps on turning. And what I mean by that is, you look at the amount of players that play the PGA Tour from college golf. Let's just take, say you have a first team, second team, and third team All-American team in Division I college golf every year. So that's 15 players that are considered an All-American in college golf. So you're an All-American in college golf. The odds of more than 3 or 4 of them having full status on the PGA Tour someday is, a percent. For sure, there's the outliers every year. We could already go with our highlighter and we could tell you which ones are going to be on the PGA Tour and are going to stay there. But for the hundreds of kids that aren't on that list, it's going to be a massive struggle. Does it mean they can't do it? Of course not. We see it all the time. The players defy the odds and make it to the PGA Tour and have great careers. If you look at, and you go conference to conference, I'll go Stanford, I'll go Vanderbilt, I'll go Northwestern, I'll go Duke. So those are your Power Four, right? You have Stanford. Well, actually now you have Stanford and Duke from the ACC. You have Northwestern from the Big Ten, and you have Vanderbilt from the SEC. So those are your 4 incredible academic institutions that are also very, very good at golf. Certainly Rice, you would be able to put academically into the conversation with Duke, Northwestern, Vanderbilt, and Stanford. You would not put Rice in that conversation with golf. Why? It doesn't make sense to me to be able to get a top 5 education from a Division I school, play in a warm weather. Why do you think Rice, and I know this is a loaded question, but why do you think better prospects, junior golfers, aren't picking Rice? Is it because they want to go to and we're not going to call a school a lesser school, but hey man, just look at the rankings academically. There's a lot of lesser schools than Rice that better players are going to in your own state.
Yeah.
James, your own state has a bunch of schools that kids are going to that are higher ranked, but they're not getting the education of Rice. Why do you think that is?
I first of all, I really appreciate you, Ryan, for calling us a top 5 school. That is high praise, and I'm not saying it's true or not true, but that's high praise. I appreciate that, Ryan. Schools you listed above, I have a lot of respect for them and their coaching staffs, friends on a few of those. I think I don't know what the direct answer is to that, especially only playing and working at Rice. I've obviously in love with this school and this university, but I would say academically, like golf, the difference between the best school and another school is a lot smaller than we think. Taking on the other side of the coin, there's, like I said, 300 Division I schools. There's only going to be one national champion at the end of the year. So, technically everybody was lesser than them that year. Should we contend more for, postseason contention and ideally nationally? Yes. I really think the way I've answered the question, especially to recruits, is that, you can't have one without the other. You have, I said this a few weeks ago at the MB3 But you have somebody that's highly academic, somebody that fits the profile of the schools that you're listing before, and they come into school and they expect to have success in the classroom and translate that onto the golf course, and vice versa. And perhaps in the past, you have this old adage of, well, I'm a golfer, or I'm an engineer, or I picked a really hard major and now my golf is suffering. And I truly don't believe that's really the case, especially in modern day academia and college sports. There's so many resources at our disposal. There's people there to help. There's the classes are starting to go after the pandemic. A few of them are online at night. I really don't think it's a matter of time. If anything, somebody that is a great student in high school, coming out of high school, should already have a lot of those time management skills, and they should have a lot of resources in place to help them have success in college. So back to the original question, is that a school like Rice, it could be argued that we haven't had the history. To your point, we've had 3 All-Americans in the history of the program. We've had 1 player hold PGA Tour membership. So perhaps the history of it is hard to overcome. But looking forward, I don't see us really always being held down by that. I really think we have a chance to take this to the next level here.
Well, I think that's a great answer, James. I think you're right. I think it's all about, the right fit. You said it earlier, finding the players who are looking for what you're offering, right? I mean, and there's enough players out there that you can find that. I think a lot of that, to Ryan's question, is, let's just face facts. I mean, you're going to go to Alabama, you're going to go to Georgia Tech, you're going to go to these schools that are deemed better golf schools, better schools based on golf, based on the trajectory of a player going to the PGA Tour, hands down. That's it. Or LPGA Tour. It's not about the academics necessarily. Yes, you're going to find that fit. That player who may go, hey, I can go to Stanford and I'll fit in. I'll make it work academically. But in fact, they're looking at it now, especially with the PGAU. I'm just looking at the PGAU. What's my opportunity? What tournaments I'm going to play in? How am I going to learn to travel? How much NIL money am I going to get? That's it. I mean, I think that's a big part of the landscape today. Unfortunately, I think we just have to be realistic here and say it's a business. College is a business. The way a lot of student athletes are looking at it, it's their business. It's how they're going to set themselves up for the future. I mean, you got student athletes getting agents now and working hard on making sure that they are going to the right places, not because it's the right fit, but it's the right fit for their business to gain money. So I think it's a really, really tough thing for a lot of young players coming out of high school to make those kind of decisions just based on academic success. I mean, look, Ivy League schools, they have the pick of the litter every single year, academically. And at some point, or actually not long ago, the best players were getting into Harvard and going to Harvard or Yale and Dartmouth and UPenn. And they would go there for their careers to die because, I mean, how many players are coming out of the, Ivy League, schools playing on the PGA Tour? Not many. Right. So, I mean, it's just what happens. And I think now with the money that's being, put into golf and put into younger players, there's opportunity here. And I think everybody's looking at that is, let me get my college paid for and let me make some extra cash on the side. And that gives me a chance to decide whether I want to play professionally or not professionally. So I think, to Rice is a great fit for so many good players. Academically and also athletically. It just, you got one player that's been on the PGA Tour, so okay, your track record is I'm not going to play on the tour from Rice.
Those are good, really good points, Roger. And you mentioned things I've been thinking about. Coach Abear last week mentioned the uncertain environment, and no one really knows what's going to happen next year, and even going further with these court cases against the NCAA, but we're just embracing it here at Rice. I think one of our strengths we've always had intrinsic to the university is being unconventional and really relying on the community here. And as we engage more of that as a leadership of our university, last year we played in Cabo, and the president of the university and our new athletic director came with us. We're the only team to bring our respective leaders, and it was awesome. They got an inside view of what college golf's all about at the highest level. The Cabo Collegiate is arguably one of the best events in all college golf. Provides an exemption to the Mexico PGA Tour event. So those kind of things, just embracing that, adjusting. Obviously, like the world of NIL collectives, coaches are not supposed to be involved in that, but there's opportunities out there. I feel them myself. It's an awesome time to be a student athlete. And to your point about the business, we just have to realize that it is a bottom line time of day nowadays. And a lot of these schools with their great athletic departments, it's a trickle down from the money that football and the revenue generating sports are trickling down. So it's just something that our athletic department's going to really emphasize, and golf is to benefit from that.
So James, let me ask you this: so you're recruiting. Do you talk to parents, players about this is a process to make it to the PGA Tour? Is it we aren't really thinking PGA Tour, we're thinking about getting you a degree from Rice, which is going to set you up for the rest of your life? What kind of player and what is that discussion? Is your recruiting obviously high-end junior golfers? Are you talking more academics, or are you throwing it out there that this is a spot where we can give you everything you need to try to make it to the tour if that's what your goal is?
No, that's a really interesting question, Ryan, because it really depends. And what I mean by that is, for me, I always try to understand the player and their families' goals and expectations of their college experience. And I've always said that this is a place where you can achieve those goals and expectations. There's no reason why we can't. To the point of the PGA Tour, it's a double-edged sword. It's we've had one PGA Tour player, but my teammate Mitchell Meisner is currently on the Korn Ferry Tour, and he's knocking on the door. And I played with him for 3 years on the team, so I've seen it. There's guys I played with in Asia that are almost there now, or guys we grew up with. So it's like I said earlier. There's not that much. There's a very small margins between one level and the next, in my opinion. But back to the parents, is that I might not engage them on a first conversation of where they envision their kid doing for the foreseeable career afterwards. But I tell them, this is a place where you can reach your goals, and we're going to do our best to get you there. The 4 years of education here is going to set you up for the next 40. That's a motto we've been really behind, and I really think that there's nothing holding them back here.
Yeah, I mean, James, from that perspective, on a day-to-day basis, what does a Rice golfer do?
That is a great insight I can provide, Roger. Is that I don't think we do too many different things than the other Division I golf programs from a scheduling standpoint. We're all, allotted 20 hours of in season. Right now we're out of season, so we're 8 hours. But in season we're allotted 20 hours of counted time, and so that's going to be 3 hours of workouts for us Monday, Wednesday, Friday in the morning, classes in the morning, and then afternoon golf. So, depending on class schedules, that's going to be playing a course on Wednesday for qualifying mostly, and then some practices and 1 day of the weekend, and then 1 day off. So scheduling wise, not too different than most other teams I would expect. But a lot of what we've been emphasizing this year is, individual work, structured practice, grounded in what they need to do they do for their game statistically, and just a lot of individual time where we are working with the 10 guys on our team, which is a smaller group. So we really appreciate the, intimacy of the work.
So let me piggyback that question. So 20 hours is you and your staff present in front of your players, but anything where you're not present, they can do whatever they want at Rice as far as continuing to practice?
Yeah, exactly, Ryan. For a good example is that practice on Friday is maybe, this is a good example. Friday is from 2 to 4:30, so that's going to count for 2.5 hours. But on a Friday afternoon when you don't have class the next day, we might see our guys out there until sunset. But that time after 4:30 didn't count towards the 20 hours. And so 20 hours doesn't sound like a lot, like in any job, which, make no mistake, this is a job. And so, to get the most out of your experience, it's not only the extra time that you're going to put in, but the quality of that time, doing the right work. And that's where the time we have with them in practice is going to really develop these practice plans and hone in on where their weaknesses are and emphasize how they could get better at their strengths. We've relied heavily on statistics. We've switched to a program called Draw More Circles this year. It's a statistical analysis program where we have a big board down on our on-campus indoor facility. And from there, they really get a numerical breakdown of each category that we find is important. There's about 20 categories, and relatively how they're doing compared to their peers. So discussions through that, and also, their own kind of intuitive insights can really push them forward. This year, what I'm really proud of is that out of the 8 players that returned, all of them improved their scoring average, and many of them statistically by a lot. Our best player went from 73 point something to 69.5.
Wow.
So that's something I've never seen, and I'm really proud of his work. And then everybody, we went a record 43 under par in the fall, which we've never gone under par in the fall. So the team is trending really well, and I don't think that's so much so that we're working harder than we ever have. That would be cliche. I think we're working on the right things with ideally, like we started this conversation with the people that are open to the feedback we've given, the coaching we've provided, and with the resources, team effort of all the resources that we have here on campus. I think we're going to take it and run.
Oh, that sounds awesome. I can't wait to get PDI down there, James.
Yes, that's what we're about to say too. Even another additional awesome improvement is have your guys down in sometime in the spring we were talking about, and
Yeah.
really, I think there's a lot of value for us there. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think certainly, James, what you guys have going on at Rice is impressive. You're extremely impressive. Roger and I both really look forward to watching your career unfold. Would not be surprised to see you at the helm and in match play in the NCAA championships. You know what you're doing, and certainly I think you'll have a connection to get some of the best players in the country, both academically and on the golf course. So we appreciate you coming on the podcast today.
Thank you so much, Ryan and Roger. That would be a dream come true, but more so, I learned in this industry, it's about the relationships that we build and the people you get to meet, like yourselves, and the experiences we have. So those are what I treasure the most. I look forward to following the podcast in the future and seeing you guys soon.
Yeah, we'll see you in Las Vegas. Take care of yourself.
Yeah, see you in Vegas for the convention.
You got it. Sounds good. See ya.
Care,
Thank you.
Roger, I think, I asked James a pretty loaded question there, but the PGA Tour now has 100 spots. And of those 100, just go through your head. You're talking about Rory, you're talking about Scott, like these, it's not like there's 100 spots. I could ramble off right now and guarantee for the next 5 years that 80, 90 of the players are going to have their spot for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
That means for the next 10 years, there's realistically, I'm not fabricating this. There's like 10 spots in the next 10 years that are up for grabs.
Yeah.
Yet, I don't know, if you're going to a top 100 school with 8 to 10 players, that's 1,000 players that are playing college golf that are all being recruited and all have the idea that they're going to play on the PGA Tour. Yet in the next 10 years, for those 1,000 players, there's 10 spots available.
Again, it's a percent, right? It's a very, very small percentage of players are going to play at the next level, and getting smaller by the minute. Thank goodness for live golf.
Hey, it's limited as well. but certainly it does provide another avenue. At least it's, obviously took some players away that opens up those 100 spots. I could make the argument that the 100 spots is in response to Live. So it had a good effect, but it's also had a negative effect in that regard, that only 100 spots, smaller fields, is they're trying to avoid the journeyman popping up on your leaderboard on Sunday afternoon. They're trying, certainly, to every week have a name that you recognize that is going to draw your attention to your television and the sponsors.
Yeah, right. I mean, look at this past weekend, in Bermuda, Ramos, a very popular player on tour, but not popular anywhere else. I mean, very, very nice guy, but missed 13 of 14 cuts this year. A guy that, went from the Korn Ferry to the PGA Tour, just making it. And now, breakthrough, win this past weekend. It's a disappointment, I'm sure, for the PGA Tour in some ways, that ratings continue to plummet watching PGA Tour golf right now on TV. Not a good sign.
The other thing I'll say is, I would not be surprised if schools like Rice start to really make a move as far as being competitive in the top 50. You're talking about a Southern school where you can practice and play year round, and you do have a parachute that, hey man, all you need to do is a Google search of mean income of Rice graduate versus go ahead, take your crack in the top 100 and see what that mean income is of a Rice graduate compared to another school. You're going to see that they make more money. At the end of the day, if there's one player every 10 years or 10 players every 10 years that are getting on the PGA Tour, you might see players start to look at schools where they could have their cake and eat it too. Yeah. I'm going to be able to practice my tail off, give it everything I have to make the PGA Tour, and I'm gonna take that dream until that dream ends. Yeah. And when that dream ends, I'm gonna have an opportunity to get into the business sector of my degree, and because of this piece of paper I'm holding, I'm gonna be able to immediately afford a house and a family.
No doubt. I mean, as you mentioned, mid-major conference, I mean, that's the way to go. That's going to be the ticket in the next wave, because you think about these Power Four conferences cutting roster spots, those players are going to drop right to that level, if you will. And it's not necessarily dropping to that level. It's just moving to a different, conference level, right? I mean,
go look at the tournament in Cabo. I mean, they're, mid-major in basketball and football, you play other mid-majors. That does not exist in golf.
Exactly. And I think that's why this is going to be such a benefit to schools like a Rice. Yeah. I mean, it is going to be huge beneficial to them to get a kid who just got cut from UNC and going, hey, I need a place to go. Or, hey, I was at Stanford, but I don't have a spot anymore.
Right. I mean, UNLV is considered a mid-major. Yep. In the golf world, UNLV is considered a blue blood powerhouse.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, no doubt about it. It's going to be interesting.
Listen, James got a great future. There's no doubt about that. It was a good insight on some of the things as a parent, and ultimately that's what this podcast and the support we've gotten from the parents, it continues to absolutely blow me away. I never in a million years dreamed that we'd have this popularity in the junior golf community, but it just shows that there was an empty hole that fortunately, Roger, we've been lucky enough to fill here on the Hub of Junior Golf podcast. So running a bit long for James. Certainly we thank James Lee for being our guest today. For our director and producer, Michael Nick, for Roger Nick, I'm Ryan Burr saying until next time, so long from the Hub of Junior Golf podcast.